welcome back. This is the first video on the heroes. So meet the soldier. The soldier's unique mechanic is his rage mechanic. So he can actually grab a card from the top of his hero deck and play it without looking at it face down on one of his open action space, and that card counts as one rage. And a lot of his cards actually power off of those that rage mechanic. So having some cards like this actually increases the strength of some of his cards. The downside to it is you actually lose a card without knowing what it is. So you could be wasting or spending that big attack card you've been looking for a while. And most of the time, as in poker, it's good to know or to remember what cards you've played so far in between two deck shuffles. So if you played a soldier, odds are eventually you're going to use some hero cards to add rage to your to power off some other cards, and then you actually don't really know every card you've played or spent so far since your last shuffle. So it can make things harder for you, but usually it's worth it to increase your defense or your attacks. Also note that some cards actually have the rage keyword on them, which means if you play that card counts as one rage, even if it's face up. And other cards, and I think it's Battle Rage, we'll see eventually, but I think it's Battle Rage, actually turns or adds the rage keyword to every card in your action spaces. So those are also great ways to actually increase your rage without spending additional cards. So let's have a look at the how the rage mechanic works for the soldier. Here in this example, I've set up as if I had already played a hustle during my hero cycle, and I'm about to do Riding the Edge, but I want to go farther than the three spaces that the card itself allows me to do. So we'll have a closer look at the card in the as we look through the cards. But the card itself allows me to move 3 spaces, but each rage I have allows me to move 1 more space. So what I can do is just grab the top card of my hero deck and place it face down as such, and this card now counts as 1 rage. So if I play Riding the Edge now, according to the text, what it does is this rage card, allows me to move 1 more spaces. So I could do 4 spaces instead of 3. Just to be clear, don't bother reading the actual cards. These are first edition cards, so they changed quite a bit for the second edition. But just the concept of the playing rage card is the same. So with this setup, I would actually do a 4 space attack with Riding the Edge. Now, if I had played let's say I had played during a darkness cycle, I had played Battle Rage, and it's still in play for this hero cycle, then right off the bat, those 2 cards would be now rage cards, because that's what Battle Rage does. It allows me to count every card in play as a rage card. So now I already have 2 rage. I could still add 1 more if I wanted to as a face down card from the hero deck, and then playing Riding the Edge. This would make it this would actually count as 4 rage because of Battle Rage, and therefore Riding the Edge would be a 7 spaces attack. That's pretty good. So that's how rage works. You can put face down cards as 1 rage. Some cards allow you to count other cards as rage. Some cards already have the rage keyword on them, so even if I didn't have Battle Rage, they would still count as rage. And then on top of that, some equipment, especially the Bulwark shield comes to mind, can grant me additional rage. So there's really something to it with the soldier. The soldier very much has 2 play styles, so he can be your damage dealer. He's better, I think, at crowd control than actually taking down bosses and big bad guys, but he's fairly good to at cleaning up the place of the minions and some captains. And the other play style is the tank. So he can actually absorb a lot of damage. He's got a lot of great defensive cards, which we'll see soon. So those are two ways you can actually play the soldiers. Of course, you can mix and match and play a bit of both. I tend to usually go for either one of them. That's just me, but I mean, you totally can try and juggle the two and balance them out. Now let's have a look at the cards and see what the soldier has in store. Alright, so the first card we're going to have a look at is the basic attack card. So that's, I think, a fairly good place to start. I should say we'll have a look at all the action cards first, then the reaction cards, and then the interrupt cards. So if you have a specific question about one card, you can skip ahead if it's a reaction or an interrupt. Harvest of Bones is the first area of attack card for the soldier. So again, you have your movement modifiers that grant extra dice if you don't move, or increases the difficulty if you've moved aggressively. So pay attention. +1 target number actually makes it difficult or harder for you. -1 target number makes it easier for you. So this with this +1 target number, a grubber that usually has a target number of 5 would actually get a target number of 6. So it makes it more difficult. You deal 1 damage within a range of 1, so even if your weapon actually has a range of 2, you can't use it at the range of 2. And you actually attack 3 adjacent spaces surrounding you. So the only restrictions you have with this attack is you can target any orthogonally adjacent space, so either of the 4. And from that space, you attack 3 continuous spaces surrounding you in either direction. So you can attack clockwise or counterclockwise. And like the card says, with if you spend up to 2, or if you have up to 2 rage on your target, your hero board, you can increase the range by up to 2 additional spaces. So you can end up with a 5 space area of effect card. And again, this is very, very much a crowd control card, so you need to spend 2 APs for that one. Next is Riding the Edge. That's I think the only other area of effect card for the soldier. But this time you use your shield to attack, and you can only use it if you've moved normally or aggressively. The new keyword they introduced for this one is dash. So I think the soldier has it and the brigand also has it. Dash is actually a type of movement, but that's something outside of the movement modifier. So it has no impact on your movement modifier. But a dash means you gain a certain number of movement points that can only be used during this attack, and you actually hit every enemy you've moved over or moved through with that card. So dash allows you to move through enemies, unless that enemy is mentions that you can't pass through it or has a red border, such as lairs. So you can't use Riding the Edge on a lair. Most of the bosses also have I'm not sure, I can't remember how they say it, if it's impenetrable or I don't know. There's a keyword on the boss card that tells you can't move through, so you can't use Riding the Edge on a boss, or most of the bosses at least, and the lairs. The Riding the Edge gives you 3 such movement points with a dash, and you may dash 1 additional space for each rage card played. So again, rage increases the range. There is no limit on the amount of additional spaces this time though, so you could actually cross a whole 12 by 12 tile in a straight line if you have enough rage. And the special rule at the end is that you cannot move again during this hero cycle. So if you can move before, you can even use a hustle before, but once you're done with your riding the edge, you can't move anymore. Again, 2 movement points. This is the perfect card to get in the middle of things with the soldier. This is usually also when the soldier dies right afterwards because he's surrounded by guys. So be careful, but I mean, if you're tanking, maybe that's the right way to play the soldier and just get in the middle of things. That card is a bit different or special for the soldier. This card, since it's a path you need to go through with the dash keyword, that means that if you fail to hit one of the target within the area of effect of the card, so remember what I was saying in the previous video, you would still only roll 1 dice pool no matter how many monster type and rank combination you face. If you actually miss one of the combination, one of the monster type rank combination, then the card itself or the attack stops in front of that unit. So even though there are other enemies behind, and even though you could hit those guys, the attack stops at the first enemy you can't actually hit, and every other enemy behind that enemy is safe from you. Is the easy way. You can play it no matter how you move. This is a stacked card. That's also a new keyword in the 2nd edition. For now, just disregard it unless you actually are in the future and have the Journeyman expansion. Then I guess I'll get back to you on what that does. But for now, if you're in 2015, then disregard the stacked keyword. The card allows you to search your draw pile for a card of your choice, which you can add to your hand. So that's a pretty good way to make sure you're gonna have either the card you need for this turn or the next one, because since the easy way is in action, you could search your deck for that big attack card, Disengage, or not Disengage, which one was it? Devastate. For Devastate or Harvest of Bones or whatever. But the problem is, since this card is in action, you can't play the other one right away. So you could still grab it and keep it for next cycle, or you could, I guess most of the time what I see is someone grabbing the right reaction card that they need to play right away. So that's what the easy way does, and in addition to it, you can actually gain 2d10 for a non-combat action or courage test. So that's the disarm trap card for the soldier, and also the way to increases or to make a courage test easier. Again, the problem with it is that it's an action, and most of the time when the heroes need to do courage test, it's to attack someone. So you're gonna have to attack that someone with a reaction card instead of your big attack actions. Now the Hidden Blade. The Hidden Blade is both an action and a reaction, so that's a special type of card. Those cards can be played as either of them, so either an action or a reaction. Now, given what I've just said, you could ask, why would I ever play that card as an action, since I can play it as a reaction and there are less restrictions with reactions. You're correct, but the reason why you would play it as an action is that most buffs, which we'll see in the next video, which will be the Acolyte, are specifically increases the effectiveness of attack actions. So you need to be careful when you read that card. Just don't tell everyone if you're the Acolyte that you add 1d10 to all attacks. You probably actually add 1d10 to all attack actions. So if you want to have that buff, you need to play Hidden Blade as an action, not a reaction. Aside from that, it's a fairly simple card. You can use it only if you haven't moved or moved cautiously. It deals 1 damage within your weapons range. And you pick 1 target within range. If it's armored, an armored enemy, your attack gains -2 target number because you probably put that blade in between plating or something. So far, I believe only the grubbers and muckers are armored, so that's a keyword you'll find on the enemy card. On the top of the card, right besides his name and rank and monster type, you should see armored. So if it's armored, then you gain -2 target number. If it's not, then the card is a basic 1 damage card for 1 AP. So first interrupt card, Battle Rage. Again with the battle keyword. Each card you play on your action spaces counts as a rage card. So that's a great way to increase your rage quickly. And in addition, you gain +1 d10 to all attack rolls for each rage card in play. So that card itself becomes a rage card because of its power, and every other card you have on your hero board also gains the rage keyword if it didn't already have it. And since this is something that lasts, that's a passive card, so that lasts until it's cleared. Even during your hero cycle, you still get that +1 d10 per rage for all your attack rolls. So that's a pretty strong card for the soldier. Next is Blade Dance. This is perhaps the awkward card with the way I sort them in my mind, passive and active, because this card is actually both. So just to make things a bit more interesting, so you'll see how it plays out. The card itself is a counter attack, so you need to play it as an active card after you've been attacked. But the card itself has a passive power, which is it grants you +2 target number for your 2-hit target number. So it makes you harder to hit by 2. And then after resolving a single enemy attack targeting you, so you can't use that counter attack every time you're attacked during every cycle. That's the active part of the power. You get you get 1 counter attack for each rage card played. So if you have 2 or 3 rage, let's say you have 2 rage in play, and you're about to get attacked, you play Blade Dance, that increases your target number by 2 right away, and right after the attack where you played that card, you get 1 counter attack per rage. So if you have 2 rage, you would get 2 counter attack. In the comments below, just tell me how I'm supposed to say that word. Drawing the ire, maybe? Ire? Just tell me. So the range of that card is anything on the tile, and it's not complicated, but it's a bit complicated. Let's just say it. So the way it works is, and that's by the way, before I forget, that's a passive card. So that card allows you to choose 1 hero on the same tile as you, and every attack targeting that hero instead targets you. So that means you get your target number, your defense target number bonuses. You can use your armor, everything. It's as if the enemies were actually targeting you, and of course you suffer damage. You're protecting the other hero. But even if the enemy is out of range, it's a melee guy that's all the way across the tile, he would swing at the other hero, but with your difficulty, your target number difficulty, and you would receive the damage. So that's a great way to protect other heroes. And on top of it, you can actually reduce the threat of that hero by the amount of rage you have. So that's also a great way. Threat is a big thing in this game, so managing your threat is very important. This card actually helps you help another hero reduce his threat. So that's pretty good. And last but not least, your mother is a crawler. So in my opinion, that's probably the second best defensive card for the soldier. This card is also a taunt, much like drawing the whatever. But the way it works is the range of the card is based off of your rage or your threat, not your threat. So the more threat you have, the biggest range the card has. And the difference is, instead of protecting a single hero and being targeted, what happens is every enemy within that range can only see you. So you are the only priority they have. So even if they are engaged with another hero, they would disengage that hero to come toward you. And that also means if they can't reach you, let's say you have a high threat of 7 or 8, then some minions at that distance will move towards you to engage you, and they won't be able to reach you. And if they're melee guys, that means they will simply move towards you, but they won't attack anyone for that darkness cycle. So that's pretty strong. And each rage you have increases the or makes it as if your threat were higher, so you can increase the range of the card with additional rage. So that's a pretty strong card, and you can actually drive the minions or the enemies towards you, which can be a good way to die if you don't manage your defense accordingly. But it also relieves tremendously the pressure from the other heroes. And since you're a melee guy, you usually want to be not necessarily surrounded, but you need to be close to the enemies, so you can kind of all bring them closer to you. So that's a very good card. Before I leave you for the soldier, I would just wanted to touch on 4 items that are meant for the soldier and that I feel could benefit from a bit more explanations. Okay, so the first item I wanted to talk about is the Bulwark. So it's the blue shield for the soldier. So first off, it gives you an additional +2 target number to hit, so that's a fairly good defensive card. If you use it to attack with your shield hero cards, it grants you +2 d10s, again, pretty good. The special power is where I think you need more information, or you could benefit from having more information. The shield attacks deal +1 damage, fairly straightforward and fairly powerful. But the next power I found a bit confusing at first. So each time you are hit by an attack during the darkness cycle, you gain 1 rage. So in itself, not something complicated, but then it got me thinking of what that actually means or how it translates during the game. So first off, every single time an enemy hits you, so a successful hit, you gain 1 rage. That's straightforward, but I was wondering how long you keep that rage. I mean, is it only for that hero cycle? Is it only during that attack? Or so the way it's actually done is you need to score it. I'd probably use a d10 just to put a number to know how many rage my shield is granting me. And you keep that rage until you refresh at the end of the hero cycle. So during the next deck phase is when you would lose all the rage you've gained. So if you get hit by a lot of attacks or a lot of darkness cycles are triggered during the same hero cycle, you actually add up all that rage every time you get successfully hit, which you can use to either increase your defense with a card like Impenetrable, or you can use to do a very long and scary riding the edge attack eventually during your hero cycle. So you could actually probably cross the whole map if you get hit often enough. So that's the Bulwark. The next item I wanted to talk about is the Destroyer's Vambrace. It's the blue accessory card. I've put it in the soldier, to me that's a card for the soldier. You don't have to use it as a soldier, or you can use it if you're somebody else. But to me it fits with the soldier, so that's why I'm talking about it right now. This card grants you 2 fate dice for any type of attack. So whether you're using your main weapon or your shield, you get +2 fate dice. And the special thing is when you attack a lair, you gain +1 damage. So again, that's fairly good since the soldier isn't the best at taking down lairs. That's a good way to do additional damage. But again, the special rule is the special power that gave me some problem is the second one. The second one is if your attack action is successful, inflict 1 damage to an adjacent enemy. So that means, and I think it's better worded in the second edition, that means you actually get an automatic 1 damage to an enemy surrounding you or adjacent to you. No matter if he was the target of the original attack, you don't need to spend any type of d10s to hit him. That's an automatic success. You do 1 damage. to that enemy. So again, a useful card, but just know you don't need to spend any die. It's automatically successful for 1 damage. Next is the Helm of Command. It gives you, again, it's a blue item, it gives you an extra 2 vitality, and the special power is again what I wanted to talk about. So the first thing it says is you may re-roll 2 enemy fate dice once during an attack targeting you. The confusing part for me was the ones. So you can re-roll them once, but it's also only for 1 single attack per darkness cycle. So you can't use that power on every single attack targeting you. You can, and it has to be a single attack. So if you use it, let's say to make a crawler re-roll its poison fate dice because he poisoned you, then you actually only use it to re-roll one fate dice because he only has 1, and you don't have an extra fate dice to make re-roll later on. So you've used the power. It's done for the hero for the darkness cycle. And the last card I wanted to talk about is again a blue card. It's the Horrifying Spear. It's a melee weapon. It deals it adds a lot of dice to your dice pool. That's all nice, but I just wanted to show you the difference between this one and the Destroyer's Vambrace we saw a bit earlier. This one, a special power, allows you to also affect 1 target adjacent to the initial target. So it makes any single target card an area of effect card with everything it implies. So you need to spend another d10 if it's a different monster type rank combination. You can only affect 1 target adjacent to the initial target. So if you were using it for Harvest of Bones and you started with the monster on your right, then the additional target granted by the spear needs to be adjacent to that guy, not anyone within the attack path. So that's the main thing. I think the other power is fairly simple. You deal 2 damage to 1 target within 4 squares. Since this is a deal damage, not it doesn't increase your area of effect. So that 2 damage is much like the Destroyer's Vambrace, automatic success. Anyone within 4 spaces, you can deal 2 damage to it. So those are the items I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry, I realize I've talked a lot more than what I intended to do, but I've decided to cover all the cards. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and it helped you a little bit understanding the soldier. If so, leave a comment, just leave some constructive comments so that I can know what to change before I shoot the upcoming hero videos. And until next time, it's been a pleasure.